Welcome to the Edge Summit. So fired up that you're here. I can't believe this has all come together. It's been, I remember back maybe a year and a half ago when we were having a conversation about exactly how we should tackle this era of AI we felt like we were all going into, that it was really going to be a 15, 20-year transformation of our lives. And how can we tackle that when it's all over the place? And we thought to ourselves, where are all the interesting things going to happen? Well, they're going to happen at the edge of our imaginations, at the edge of technology, at the edge of customer experiences. And so no better way to tackle that topic than to create the Edge Summit, third of its kind here in New York City after Napa Valley and London. Welcome, fired up that you're here. Thank you to our partners, Google and NVIDIA, for doing this with us. And it is great to be surrounded by so many incredible leaders across a wide range of areas, across marketing, across commerce, across technology. And of course, what else are we surrounded by? We're surrounded by AI. And we're surrounded by it everywhere. Everywhere we turn, there is a new AI announcement, there's a new press release, there's a new product, there's a new API, there's a new technology, there's a new model. And all of it claims to change the way we work, the way we do business. It can feel like we're on a little bit of a treadmill, an AI speed treadmill perhaps. And of course, we're hearing all of these announcements in not the easiest of times. A time of war, a time of economic peril. It's been a tough year for many of you that have operated in the retail industry where comps may not be up. We've been told to drive growth on one side, to do more with less, to become more profitable. And we've got to do all of this as cost of capital is maybe at its highest point. So we can be in this dreamland of AI, but then we've got the economic reality of our jobs on the other side. So in the middle of all of this, how do we figure out a plan? How do we figure out a way through this? Well, how much of this AI noise is worth listening to in the first place? Might be the basic question. What will actually move the needle on my business, for my customers, my teams? Well, I have good news maybe for a lot of you. Most of this AI stuff, 90% of it, it's noise. Ignore it. It just doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. It is cool, a little bit of curiosity, maybe something to read over a cup of coffee in the morning. It's primarily inconsequential AI that does not actually move the needle on your business. But of course, that means there's 10% that actually can, that can be truly transformative, that can really move the needle for all of us. How do we figure this out? How do we separate the signal from the noise? We know the potential in that 10% is enormous. And so it's so important for us to figure this out, to separate the wheat from the chaff, to separate the 10% from the 90%, and to have some quick hacks to figure out what to dismiss and to figure out what to pay attention to. We call the 10% consequential AI because it truly is consequential, and we've got to find it. And for AI to matter, we feel like there's a series of tests. We can ask these basic questions before we apply brain cycles against something that might not matter. And we feel like it's got to at least pass two of these three tests. First, it's got to put us on a path where it meaningfully moves the needle on a key business metric by at least 10%. It's not that that's going to happen overnight, not that it's going to be a magic wand that actually gets us there, but we have to have conviction that we can go to our CFOs, that we can go to our shareholders, that we can say, this particular initiative, I see the 10%. I see the path. It's really clear. The second thing that it's got to do is it's got to really move the needle on the customer experience. It's got to transform it. And it doesn't just have to change the customer experience. It has to change it in a way that gives us true competitive advantage. Because if we do the thing that the other person does and the other person does, then it's inconsequential again. So it's got to be really needle moving for the customer experience in a way that's profound and differentiated. And the third thing is we've got to see a path to where we can operate the productivity of our teams at least 2x more productively. And so these are our 3 tests. We feel like if we meet 2 of these 3, we have a shot at it being in the consequential category. And the majority of AI, well, we can see why it's mostly inconsequential. These are high bars. These are really difficult bars to meet. A lot of it, it's cool, quick wins, it's small efficiency gains, a little bit of instant gratification, some novelty factor, but it doesn't move the needle. Why is that the case? Why, as an industry, do we have a proclivity to put out so many press releases, so many announcements, so many ideas that are in this category of inconsequential? Well, we feel like one of the concepts that maybe has done us a disservice is this notion of a co-pilot, which is maybe the word that we've heard more since except if we've been on, in the air travel world, more in the last 2 years than maybe ever before. And certainly, co-pilots are cool. They help us do our job. They might provide a little bit of speed, a little bit of scale, a little bit of efficiency gains. But for us to think about consequential AI, we have to go beyond that. There are. I don't want to say that all co-pilots are not useful. There are truly consequential co-pilots. A good example, I think, is what we've seen in the developer community. And we know that so much of new technology hits developers first before it hits the rest of us. And we can see that there's pretty clear evidence points that a lot of the co-pilots for coding can improve productivity by as much as 60%. So that is truly a consequential co-pilot. But a lot of it probably won't fundamentally change our business. If we have a co-pilot that might help us author some emails a little bit more quickly, if we have a co-pilot that might co-create some images a little bit more quickly, if we have a co-pilot that might summarize a document, maybe a legal document, helpful, truly needle moving, can we really go and say 10% impact, I can justify this business case, it's going to move the needle on my business or my customer experience or my productivity? Questionable at best. So we feel like quantifying the impact of doing these things at a few extra images, these aren't going to make us the market leader. We have to think much beyond these kinds of examples. And if we can't quantify the impact, well, we know it's just a cool tool. So for AI to be truly consequential, we got to move beyond the idea of a co-pilot. Much beyond the idea of a co-pilot. We have to think about, rather than all of us flying the plane, that the AI really is the pilot, not the co-pilot. Which of course raises maybe that existential question. If AI is the pilot, then what exactly are we? Well, I would say we become the air traffic controllers. We manage all the planes in the sky. When the weather shifts, as it inevitably does, maybe a little more often these days than in the past, we react to it with instinct, with our past experience, with the data. We look at the complete picture. We certainly look to land the plane. But we also optimize the flow of an entire field's worth of traffic, making sure multiple planes land and take off. And of course, like any good air traffic controller, you are still in control if we get this right. And so you can always override the pilot's flight plan, and rules that were previously defined by pure execution now start to become defined a little bit more with strategy, a little bit more with judgment, a little bit more with creativity, by the ability to anticipate what comes ahead and have the instincts to respond a little bit faster. I think there's lots of fascinating examples of truly consequential AI applications. And before we come back to marketing and e-commerce, let's look at a few of them. I think we can see the potential for AI to revolutionize clinical trials, an industry that has operated, a process that's been operating the same way for a lot of years, one that drug companies spend $100 billion annually on. Acting as the pilot, AI could potentially accelerate patient recruitment and trial design. One company's AI platform purports to use anonymous electronic medical records for 350 million patients and data on different drugs to simulate how each patient might react to a certain drug that's in development. And so as developers act as air traffic control, they have the opportunity to construct a trial for a drug in weeks rather than months or even years. Or let's switch gears to another field, education, where today 2.7 million kids use private tutors in the US. 2.7 million. But Khan Academy's Khanmigo, an AI-powered one-to-one tutor, it can offer personalized tutoring not just to 2.7 million, but potentially to 300 million people who can get online. Profound, significant impact in democratizing the kind of thing that would only be accessible to the few, now to the many. And in its first year, Khanmigo hit 65,000 students in 56 school districts across the US. Immediate transformation. Consequential application of AI. Let's bring it a little bit closer to home. I know many of us have had the kind of annoying experience that we as consumers hate. Dealing with automated customer service. Something a little bit closer to home. In fact, a recent poll suggests that 22% of respondents would rather spend a night in jail than deal with anonymous customer service of this type. So what if we could take these kind of robotic experiences that we all, perhaps some of us offer, perhaps some of us power, we know why we do it, but what if we could take that and replace that with an AI agent that simulates an expert, that isn't just in taking in the call, but in resolving, a veteran customer service agent with knowledge of the full knowledge base, not just traversing a blind tree? What if we could improve wait times and improve overall efficiency, and also personalize that experience in a way that understood the individual consumer? The ability to speak to them in different accents and voices, to express emotion. Well, maybe we have a shot of a few less people wanting to go to jail. I know I would welcome that change. And when AI serves as the pilot, the impact has the opportunity to be truly consequential. Shifting our understanding of AI as the pilot, it might seem a little bit daunting, it might sound a bit futuristic, but we've got to embrace it with the curiosity and with the urgency that merits a technology of this type. In fact, we have lived in a non-AI world for so long that it sometimes feels like every new AI toy that gets launched seems monumental, seems like a big deal. Well, pretty soon, I think we can say that's no longer going to be the case. I would go so far as to say that as we think about the analogies to AI, we've asked ourselves, is it more like internet? Is it more like mobile? What is it exactly like? Hopefully it's not like metaverse. But we feel like it's actually, the best analogy might be electricity. And that in the early days, electricity was revolutionary, just as AI feels revolutionary. But it was really expensive, as it is right now. I can tell you, for those of us that are calling these APIs, we need these costs to come down. At that point, when electricity came about, the cost per kilowatt hour, depending on where you lived, was $5 to $7 per kilowatt hour in today's dollars. And as the cost of electricity dropped, of course, it was easier for anyone to use it, and we started to build more and more applications, and today it's 13 cents per kilowatt hour on average. Massive orders of magnitude of change in cost, which then result in the democratization of the technology. And we're seeing that while we are in the early days, we're actually seeing the same curve for AI. Thanks to our partners and the capital investment they're making, folks like Google and NVIDIA and others, the cost of model inference is declining incredibly fast. It's getting easier and easier to use these foundational models, to use open source models, and to do so with less processing to achieve the same goals that we set last year. And I'll just give you an example of exactly how accessible AI is. It's not just that it's becoming accessible in terms of cost, it's becoming accessible in terms of how to use it. You needed to have a PhD to work with these models in the past. Last month, my 15-year-old son was able to train a model to recognize language in social media posts that evidenced a bit of emergency assistance. And at 15, now let me say, I might be a bit of a tiger dad, but this was no work of genius. In fact, it wasn't super hard in the first place. He didn't need to understand any of the underlying mathematical models for these AI systems. He just needed a tool set. He needed to understand the data. He needed to understand the inputs. He needed to understand the desired output and how to use these tools, and then just trust AI to do the job. That was what he did. So yes, AI still feels extraordinary to all of us here today, in year 2. But remember, light bulbs were once considered extraordinary as well. Now, you hardly even register electricity. The only time you think about it is when it's not there. And just as we can't imagine a world without electricity, it won't be long until we can't imagine a world without AI. So tomorrow, when we get back to work, when we put hands on keyboards or on phones, in the middle of the challenge of the economic perils on one side and the AI noise on the other, and when we're trying to think about how to decide what to do next, let's ask ourselves those fundamental questions. Is what we are spending time on consequential? Are we looking at the kind of double-digit impact in business metrics? Are we looking at true differentiation in our customer experience in a way that will move the needle on market share? Are we looking at the kind of AI that has the outsized productivity impact that our teams deserve and want? Put more simply, are we embracing consequential AI? I know we're going to have a lot of conversation this afternoon about examples, and I know many of you already are. And I want to introduce you to one friend and partner that is truly doing consequential things in AI. Tim O'Connor, SVP of Integrated AI Marketing, Engineering, and Analytics at Xtelligence Learning Corp. Tim, join me on the stage. Welcome. Welcome. It's great to see you. It's great to see you, Tim. Tim, welcome to Edge. I'm fired up that you're here. First of all, I think you have the coolest title in the world. That is the coolest title. Tell us a little bit about Xtelligence.
Well, thank you, Raj, and hello everybody in New York and the tens of thousands of you who are watching live online right now. Xtelligence is grateful that we're able to serve the over 2 million really heroic teachers in the United States that work with young learners. There's 33 million of them around the United States in daycare centers and elementary schools. And what we do to be of service to them is we provide a range of classroom solutions. Those might be anywhere from hands-on learning through digital resources, and we do that through a variety of our brands, including our flagship brand, which is Discount School Supply, and we're proud to say that for the last 5 years, Newsweek has ranked it the #1 e-store in early education, and I got to say, Raj, that Bloomreach has played a really big part in making that happen, so thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for the great work that you do for education, for our teachers. It's been an incredible partnership. And let's talk through the last couple of years of AI at Xtelligence. What has that journey looked like for you?
Well, it's been transformative, and I'd like to make 2 points about that. The first is, I think a lot of people think about AI more so as something that can help in the area of productivity and back of the office operational efficiency, and there's a lot of value there. But well before GPT came out, we looked at AI in a little bit different framework. We looked at it from a standpoint of, then we just called about what we could do to transform the customer experience. Now we're talking about really consequential customer experiences. And that shift to think about it that way in terms of how we could add value to the customer became very pivotal for us, and we're really pleased with the results that we're seeing. Now, the second thing I would point out is actually it's a humbling learning. So probably like a lot of you have all these disparate tech systems out there, you have different data systems, and we attempted to try to put them all together. You call that interoperability. So how you can take all these different tech stack operation or applications and all their data, and how can you get them to work together? Well, The humbling part is, after a whole lot of work by a lot of really smart people, we ended with 3 things. The first thing is it's super hard to do. The second thing is, no matter what you do, it's probably going to be a lot less than what you thought you were going to get out of it in the beginning. And the third thing is that it's really difficult to sustain it. And so it was about a year ago that I got to hear Raj talk on the Edge Summit stage in California. And when he shared his unified vision of AI and data, I literally grabbed him after his talk. I can still see myself in the meeting room. He was a little bit, what? And, but I told him, I said, look, Raj, I really buy into this vision of what you have, and we want to do it, and we want to do it fast. So I don't know if you remember that.
Well, I do remember that, and I'm glad you cornered me and fired up that we were able to use AI to stitch together all of these disparate systems and deliver on your vision of personalization. And so when you think about where we are today in that journey, what's an area that you're applying consequential AI right now?
Sure, I'd love to share that. Probably like a lot of you, you have various degrees of personalization. Like we have personalization that is powered by Bloomreach, and we're very happy with that. And for many customers, when they come to the website, there's a happy path that personalization can create. It can take them from starting to search for things and ultimately getting them to the shopping cart, and they're very happy. And there's a lot of value from that, and we're thrilled with that. But there are also situations where a customer has a more complex need. So I'll use an example from my company. So suppose you're a 3rd grade teacher, and you're looking for literacy solutions because you have a large amount of English language learners in your classroom, and you're trying to help those children. That's actually a lot more complex problem to solve, because at our company, we have over 300 solutions and kits just for a 3rd grader in literacy learning. So how do you figure that out? It's not a very simple tree structure that you can have. It's a more of a organic type of a search example. So what happens is that the teacher will reach out to a salesperson, an expert salesperson, who will then try to guide that customer to their particular need. They're going to talk to them, they're going to learn about their needs, and they're going to use all of that information to help guide them to a particular solution. Well, that's wonderful when that happens, but it's not always practical for the customer or convenient. Imagine it's 10 o'clock at night in San Francisco. How does a teacher, and by the way, they are working at 10 o'clock at night on their own to help our young children. We really need to thank these people. They're heroes. And so what happens with consequential AI is that it's having that expert salesperson sitting right next to the customer at 10 o'clock at night and helping them to guide them to a particular solution. That's real value. And by the way, we're doing this. This is not theory. We're doing this today. And that adds real value to the customer, and it adds real value to our company. And so we're thrilled with that ability to have that expert salesperson in the form of consequential AI.
It's fascinating, because a year ago, when we were launching Clarity, the idea of Clarity was that it would solve exactly these kind of complex need problems. Could we take your best salesperson, your best store associate, and put them in a digital agent that could interact directly with a customer and offer the kind of experience that heretofore has not been possible in most online systems? And you've been kind of an early adopter of Clarity. So tell us a little bit more about what you see from this kind of conversational AI system.
Sure, I really like that term, consequential AI, because it has to deliver consequential value. And if you think really the moment of truth is you have to be able to see it in the numbers. And what that be? What would those numbers be? They might be things like higher sales, AOV, conversion rates. That's showing consequential value because it comes into the numbers. And if it doesn't show up in the numbers, then it's noise. And therefore, any of the other metrics you might think about, who cares about those? They're not meaningful. And while I can't share the actual details, obviously publicly, of the numbers that we're getting out of this, but I can tell you this: we've put all the normal marketing tests against it, A/B test, holdout test, and other things. and we're actually delighted with what we see. We're seeing consequential value to our company because we're seeing consequential value to the customer.
That's awesome. Love hearing that, Tim. Now, tell us, I think all of us with experimentation in AI, we're learning new things every day. So what have you learned? What has been most surprising to you about this AI journey, about Conversational, as you've embarked on it with us?
When I heard Baratunde earlier, and by the way, I was not in London, I didn't hear his talk, I didn't see this interview with him and Arianna Huffington, and they talked about this notion of, will AI make us less human? So I want to share something that's personal, some things that I learned on this one, because I spend maybe way too much time up here and not enough time here. That's where us being human is. And I think if we first think about AI, it's a tool. It's not the rule. It's not the ruler. We are still the humans in charge of using and applying this amazing technology. And so what I want to share personally is that as we've applied clarity and as we've learned about things about our customers, we've actually learned things about our customers that we didn't know about before. We've uncovered needs that they had, and they weren't even on our radar. And when you start to really understand your customer, and by the way, we were able to actually already apply some of that learning to create some changes that we did, and they're substantial. But when you start to learn about the customer, about what they're really facing, and Clarity's giving you that information, what happens is you have the opportunity to be more empathetic. And as Ariel Huffington mentioned, or that computer was saying, I forget what Baratunde's computer was called, but empathy is a human, if you will, trait. And so me personally, when I've looked at that and read these transcripts, my heart started to open up because I'm saying, wow, I have no idea that these are some of the things that they're facing. And I think in my case, in my company's case, AI is helping us to actually understand our customers more. And if we really listen, that allows us to be more empathetic. And when we are more empathetic, I think we're more human.
That is an incredible story and really challenges the notion of what AI is. These kinds of examples of using AI to listen deeply to the customer, to build more connection with them, to foster empathy, and ultimately make us more human, that is an incredible, incredible story. And one last question. Any advice? What advice do you have for this esteemed group as they go down this journey of seeking consequential AI?
Sure, a couple of things, and this is just my experience. But I would say this: experiment relentlessly. This is going fast. It's going faster than I think any of us ever expected. And when you test relentlessly, what's going to happen is some things are going to succeed and some things aren't, and that's okay. But all that testing, you start to build muscle. And I think it's really important for all of you here as marketing leaders and all of you watching online. You've got to build the muscle here. You have to personally know how these things work. You have to personally experience it so that you can lead your teams. We are leaders of marketing. We have to lead our teams to use this responsibly, to use this to create consequential value. Because if you don't learn this, if you don't really apply it, and you don't learn how to create consequential value for your customers, then you run the risk of being leapfrogged by your competitors, who may be in the room, may be online. And on a personal level, if you don't become an AI marketing expert, then you run the risk of a new CMO who knows those skills leapfrogging you. But I'll tell you this, I bet on all of you, and I bet on all of you that are watching, because you're here. You're spending time to learn this stuff. You're spending time to learn from each other. And I think that's the last thing I want to mention, is that there's this phrase that none of us are as smart as all of us. And I think that's very true. Now, while I'm really appreciative, and I hope that whatever I've shared has been of help to you all, what I'm looking forward to is to learn from you all and hear more about how you're using AI to create consequential value for your companies, because you're creating consequential value for your customers. So let's have a great day today. Let's learn from each other. And again, Raj, thank you very much for everything you're doing for us.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on the Edge stage. Another round of applause for Tim O'Connor. Well, fired up about this story and so many others that are with us here in the audience today. And you know, when I co-founded Bloomreach 15 years ago, this was the dream. The dream was, we're going to deliver this kind of personalization. It's going to be freaking amazing.